Welcome to the RPG Players Club. My name is Gordon Jackson. I'm going to be talking about races today, and I use the 5e character. This is from Dungeon Developer. It's an app available at the App Store. And the thing I like about this app is you can manage sources once you get this. And they have a bunch of different apps for characters and spells, and they have a bunch of different apps specifically for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. You can download new sources so that you can get access to all of them. So the first time you load the game, you'll have to go in and update all of these different sources that you can have for races. The cool thing about it is let's say that your dungeon master says, hey, we're only going to use the player's handbook. So you can come in and just click on the player's handbook, and then when you look at races, it's only going to show you the races that are available in the player's handbook. If your dungeon master says, hey, we're going to play only from the Eberron Rising of the Last War, we're only going to play those because we're going to be playing some campaigns in there. You can click on that and then click on races, and it'll show you just the races that are available in those modules or that source. So it kind of gives you a good idea, depending on what you're playing, what you can play. If you've got access to all of them, it gives you all of them in one place, so you don't have to search around for different races. Very good app. All right, let's check out races. Let's talk Aarakocra. So Aarakocra, sequestered in the high mountains atop tall trees, the Aarakocra, sometimes called bird folk, of course, evoke fear and wonder. Many Aarakocra aren't even native to the material plane. They hail from a world beyond, from the boundless vistas of the elemental plane of air. They are immigrants, refugees, scouts, and explorers, their outposts functioning as footholds in a world both strange and alien. So whenever I'm looking and trying to pick a race, one of the things that I like to do, it adds not only for myself, but it can add a lot for the game, for my DM, is to come and try and find something that represents what I want to play. So you can go to Google or Yahoo, any of them, check on images. We got Aarakocra here, and go through and kind of get an idea. Do you want to run, a martial character? Do you want to run a spellcaster? What kind of character do you want to run? And try and get some inspiration by looking at different images instead of just the stock image that may be provided, so that you can get a little bit of idea. Also, what I like about this right here is this is a vulture. That doesn't seem like what we think of when we think vultures, and maybe alignment, or what they're whether they're good guys or bad guys. We can get some ideas here. So if you want to play a character, you can get some looks at it. Maybe it's not just it's put out there a lot where it's martial characters, but trying to look at some of these races in other classes. And with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, with the new optional origins, you can really do it. Like, I really like this image right here. This brings to me like more of not just where they're solitary, but this brings to me like where we've got a culture where they've got cities and they've got groupings of people, and there are different species within the Aarakocra. They may all have similar characteristics, but it gives you some mental images. I really like that right there. That to me looks like your mage, wizard, some type of spellcaster, not as much martial. Maybe the big warrior. You want that barbarian Aarakocra. A little bit more of the regal. That's another good image right there. I could see your character walking around with that stuff. Very nice. Maybe that secret Aarakocra cult or sect, that warrior branch. Maybe that goes into your background. Here we've got what looks to be a raven or a crow. I get a lot of inspiration from looking at different images of it. I'm really when I start to build a character, I have an idea of what I want, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. And sometimes you can look at an image and go, wow, that really describes what I'm looking for there. I really, and what I like about these right here is that they're showing different species of birds, but they're all Aarakocra. I mean, you look at them and it's, hey, Aarakocra. But when you look at it, you can tell that this Aarakocra is a little bit different. They have a little bit different upbringing, or what they learned is a little bit different. Now, this image right here brings to mind why there's going to be a lot of games and a lot of DMs that aren't going to allow you to play Aarakocra, because they are devastating if they're in a class where they have a missile weapon from height. So it could be if they get immobilized while they're at height, if there's a spellcaster and they get immobilized, it could be a really, really bad thing for them to fall from a couple 100 feet or 100 feet. But if they're in the air, they could be used as scouts. They can also be used to snipe people off. There's a lot of DMs that probably aren't going to want that aspect in a game. But if your DM's allowing Aarakocra, there are tons of different ways that you can approach that race. So let's look at what the bonuses are for an Aarakocra. So we'll look at the stats. They get a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to wisdom. Now, if you're playing the optional roles from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which are absolutely awesome because you can really customize this character. If your DM's allowing you to play this character race, then you can really customize this to what class that you want to play. So instead of just having a +2 to dex and a +1 to wisdom, you can put a +2 on any stat and you can put a +1 on any stat. You can't put them on the same stat, but you can change that around. So if you wanted to run a wizard, maybe you want to run this +2 on intelligence, but you still want to help your dexterity out or your wisdom, and you could keep the +1 in wisdom or in dexterity, but you can move those around to meet your idea of what your character is going to be. They have a size of medium. They have a base speed on ground of 25 feet, which is kind of in between. In the player's handbook, half the races are at 20, and elves and humans, they're at 30. So you're right there kind of in between, not a bad ground speed. The big deal here is the flying speed of 50. So being able to fly is a huge deal. And for some DMs, they may not allow it just because they have characters that can fly, and that introduces a whole new mechanic and a whole new dynamic to the game that they don't want in their campaign. So don't be surprised if your DM says, hey, we're not including Aarakocra. So Aarakocra mature by the age of 3, and compared to humans, Aarakocra don't usually live longer than 30 years. So they have a fairly short lifespan, but they start off early. So they don't have to wait until they're 15 or 16 before they become that adult. They're adults by 3, and they get 27 solid years in that form. Most Aarakocra are good and rarely choose sides when it comes to law and chaos. Tribal leaders and warriors might be lawful, while explorers and adventurers might tend toward chaotic. And really, you can play whatever alignment you want that meets your character's needs or how you want to play your character. Size, Aarakocra are about 5 feet tall. They have thin, lightweight bodies that weigh between 80 and 100 pounds. Your size is medium. Flight, you have a flying speed of 50 feet. To use this speed, you can't be wearing medium or heavy armor. So if you're an Aarakocra, you're going to either wear no armor or you're going to wear light armor. Talons, your talons are a natural weapon and you can use to make unarmed strikes. If you hit with them, you deal slashing damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier, instead of bludgeoning damage, which is normal for unarmed strikes. Languages, you can speak, read, and write Common, Aarakocra, and Aran. Now let's talk about that last one. This language right here is the elemental plane of air language, and one of the things about that language, just doing a little bit of research here for you. Aran was a breathy, relaxed language that had been described as a slow exhaling of air. It was considered a dialect of Primordial, which is an exotic language in Dungeons and Dragons, so that creatures who spoke it spoke one of the other elemental dialects, such as Ogwen, Ignan, or Terran, could understand Aran, and vice versa. So it does give you that one language right there, and that language is a derivative of both Azeto and Midani, or they are derived from it. So you could end up in situations where you don't necessarily, you can't speak that language, but you might be able to understand it a little bit more than you can speak it, so that you could pick up some clues from that. So it does, that language is an exotic, being primordial. If you're using, hold on one second. Let's find it. Hold on. Here we go. And Tasha's called in of everything on languages. If you're customizing your origin, your character's race includes languages that your character is assumed to know, usually common in the language of your ancestors. For example, a halfling adventurer is assumed to know common and halfling. Here's the thing. D&D adventurers are extraordinary, and your character might have grown up speaking languages different than the ones in your language trait. To customize the languages you know, you may replace each language in your language trait with a language from the following list. Abysmal, Celestial, Common, Deep Speech, Draconic, Dwarvish, Elvish, Giant, Gnomish, Goblin, Halfling, Infernal, Orc, Primordial, Sylvan, and Uncommon. Your DM may add or remove languages from that list depending on what languages are appropriate for your campaign. So that language is part of the primordial. It is an exotic language. So it's possible that your DM may allow you to switch that up for something that may be more appropriate for your campaign or the build that you're trying to do with your character. But you'll have to speak with your DM about that to find out what they're going to allow. All right, that was a little bit of review on the Aarakocra. Not a bad. I can see a lot of DMs not allowing us to play this, but I have not personally played an Aarakocra, but I after looking and doing some research for this video, I may my next character may be an Aarakocra if my DM will allow it. All right, thanks for watching. If you like the videos, hit like. If you really like the channel, hit subscribe and ring that bell, and you'll get notifications whenever new videos come out. Have a great day.